I wanted to get away. The city was loud and busy. That's why I rented the remote cabin. It was just me, surrounded by tall pines and a calm lake. I thought it would be peaceful. At first it was, just the sound of birds and quiet. I set up my laptop on the table and started working. The cabin felt oddly silent. I shook it off and went for long walks in the woods. It was nice until my second night there. Around midnight I woke up suddenly. I heard something. Footsteps, maybe? I wasn't sure. I thought it might be a deer or a raccoon. When I glanced outside, a shadow darted past my window. My heart raced. I convinced myself it was just my imagination. The next day I took a walk to clear my head. That's when I saw them. Strange symbols carved into the trees. They weren't just random marks. My unease grew, but I pushed it away. I took pictures, hoping they'd inspire me. But at night the noises continued. I heard branches snapping and whispers, definitely not the wind. Each night I felt more uneasy. The longer I stayed, the more scared I felt. Then came the night the door opened by itself. I was working on a design when it happened. The door creaked and swung open. I froze. There shouldn't be anyone here. I peeked into the darkness but couldn't see anything. I felt cold air rush in. Was the door unlocked? I wasn't sure. The next few days went by in a blur of anxiety. I avoided going outside after dark. The symbols felt like they were closing in around me. I thought about leaving, but I felt a strange obligation to stay. Maybe the isolation was messing with my mind. Each shadow and noise made me doubt myself. One evening I walked out to the lake. I needed to clear my thoughts, but that's when I saw someone standing in the distance. I squinted, but it was just out of sight. I wanted to call out, but fear held me back. It just stood there, staring. My heart raced as I stepped back toward the cabin. Once inside, I slammed the door shut. I turned to check my work, but my laptop screen was frozen. My heart sank. I could have sworn I heard knocking. I jumped when I heard it again. It was quiet now, but I hesitated. I didn't feel alone anymore. I thought about the symbols, the figure I saw, the feeling of being trapped. Then the whispers started again, right outside my door. I held my breath. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. The last thing I remember clearly is the knocking, then silence. I opened the door slowly. There was nothing there. No one was watching, or at least, I thought. I was wrong. Now I still think about that cabin. The symbols, the footsteps, the shadow. I can't shake the feeling that something is still out there, waiting. The next morning, I awoke to the sun spilling through the window. I felt tired, like I hadn't slept at all. The shadows of the night still clung to my mind, but I knew I had to shake it off. I made coffee and sat at the table, staring at my laptop. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but inspiration was gone. I forced myself to take a deep breath and decided to explore further. I grabbed my camera and headed outside. As I walked past the symbols, I tried to take pictures again. I noticed new carvings I hadn't seen before, twisted shapes and jagged lines that looked almost human. It sent a shiver down my spine. I kept telling myself they were just marks, nothing more. Later I wandered toward the lake. The water was still, reflecting the trees like a mirror. But as I stood there, I felt a presence. I turned, half expecting to see someone behind me, but it was just the trees swaying in the breeze. Still, unease crept back in. I needed to distract myself, so I walked back to the cabin to work. But when I opened the door, I saw something that made my breath catch. The laptop screen was lit, and a new file appeared on my desktop. I hadn't created it. I didn't even recognize the file name. With shaking hands, I clicked on it. It was a series of photos, dark and blurry but unmistakably of the cabin. In the corner of one, near the window, there was a figure. My stomach twisted. Was that the shadow I saw? I wanted to vomit. I slammed the laptop shut and paced the floor. My mind raced with questions. Who took these? When? I could feel panic rising. I had to know what was going on. I grabbed my phone to call for help, but there was no signal. The isolation weighed heavier than before. My heart thundered in my chest, and the need to escape surged. But I hesitated. I still had this feeling of obligation, like there was something I needed to uncover. That evening I decided to check the area around the cabin. Maybe there was something I missed. I took a flashlight and ventured into the forest, my heart pounding with each step. The underbrush rustled, and I thought I saw movement, but nothing appeared. When I reached the spot with the symbols, I noticed something different. The ground was disturbed, like someone had been digging. I knelt down to look closer when I heard a noise, crunching footsteps coming from behind me. I whipped around, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the shadows, but nothing was there. Then I heard whispers again, but this time they were unmistakable. They were calling my name. Panic surged as I realized the whispers were coming from all around me. I shined the light across the trees, but the woods were silent again. My pulse raced, and I stumbled back, tripping over roots. I needed to leave, I really did. But then I noticed something glimmering in the dirt where the symbols were carved. I reached down and pulled out a small object. It looked like a pendant with the same symbols etched into its surface. An icy chill coursed through me. This couldn't be just a coincidence. I could barely think as the whispers grew louder. Someone, or something, was watching. I turned to run. But as I did, I realized I wasn't alone in the woods anymore. Then the presence moved closer, and for the first time I felt a cold breath on my neck. I spun around and everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness enveloped me, cold and suffocating. My instincts screamed to run, but I couldn't see anything. My hands shook as I reached for the flashlight. As soon as I flicked it back on, the beam sliced through the shadows, revealing a clearing. I was alone. The trees stood high around me, branches swaying gently, but I could still feel the weight of someone, or something, watching. I turned slowly, desperate to catch a glimpse of what had been there. Nothing but silence. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding wildly. The pendant slipped from my fingers and fell into the dirt. I crouched to pick it up, desperately glancing around. Those whispers circled my thoughts. They were real. Something had happened here, something significant. With my breath coming in sharp bursts, I scanned the ground near the symbols. I noticed another disturbance, a shallow hole partially filled with dirt. My curiosity overrode my fear. I knelt down again to inspect it, brushing away loose soil with trembling fingertips. As I dug deeper, my nails scraped against something hard, a small wooden box. I lifted it carefully, feeling the weight of it in my hands. It was old, the surface marked with the same twisted symbols I'd seen before. I felt a strange pull toward it, something primal that made me feel I had to know what it contained. Just then, I heard a rustling sound again, this time closer. My heart raced as I turned, but the flashlight beam only illuminated the dark trunks of trees. I was sure it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but the silence felt oppressive, as though the woods were holding their breath. I shook my head, trying to clear my thoughts. I had to focus. I opened the box slowly, every creak sounding like thunder in the quiet around me. Inside, I found several crumpled pieces of paper. Drawings, I realized as I unfolded one. It was an illustration of the cabin, but there was something more. A figure in the window, eyes wide and watching. Chills ran down my spine. This couldn't be a coincidence. I flipped through the others, and they got darker. More symbols and disturbing images of twisted figures. And then I froze. In the corner of one drawing, a familiar face stared back at me, a face I recognized. It was mine. The resemblance was uncanny, down to the terrified expression. Before I could process what this meant, a sudden noise echoed through the clearing, louder this time. A heavy thud, followed by a low growl. My skin crawled. I looked up just in time to see movement in the trees, something big, looming just out of sight. Fear flooded my body and instinct took over. I shoved the box into my bag, grabbed the pendant and sprinted back toward the cabin. Each step felt like a battle against the unseen force that seemed to lurch after me. I burst through the door, slamming it shut behind me. My breath came in ragged gasps. I could still feel that presence outside. I fumbled for my phone, desperate for a signal, but nothing. The walls felt like they were closing in. That was when I heard it, steady knocking on the door, a slow and deliberate rhythm. My heart was in my throat. I backed away, not knowing if whatever was out there was trying to get in or just waiting. I didn't want to find out. As the knocking continued, I couldn't shake the feeling that my discovery had unleashed something I wasn't prepared for. I had to uncover the truth before it was too late. The knocking became a heartbeat, steady and insistent. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to remain as quiet as my racing pulse would allow. I thought about running to the window, glancing outside to see whatever was out there, but part of me feared what I might find. The air felt thick with tension as I stood frozen. The cabin's silence was unsettling, each knock echoing louder in the emptiness. I cursed myself for ever coming here, for ignoring the warnings. My fingers trembled as I touched the box tucked in my backpack. Whatever I found, I knew it held answers, but at that moment, I wished I had never opened it. Then, the knocking stopped abruptly. My heart leapt into my throat. Was it a trick? Did whatever was out there now know I was inside? I stood there, straining to hear anything. I had to think. If I could just figure out my next move, maybe I could. A soft scratch came from the door, then a low voice called out, barely audible. "Let me in." I recoiled. It sounded human, but there was an edge to it that sent shivers chasing down my spine. "Who are you?" I croaked, hoping my voice wouldn't shake. "Please, I need your help. They're coming." A wave of fear washed over me. I didn't know if I could trust whoever was on the other side. "What do you mean? Who's coming?" "Just let me in. They can't find you if you stay quiet," the voice pleaded, panicked now. My thoughts raced. I felt trapped. In the box, I had seen clear signs of something terrible, a warning that could not be ignored. But what if that person outside was just as much at risk as I was? I turned toward the window in a moment of impulse. Cautiously, I peered through the dusty glass. A figure stood just out of the forest's shadow, shrouded in darkness. I couldn't make out details, only that it was hunched and trembling. I squinted hard, hoping for a glimpse of recognition. Then a crack of a branch made me jump. My gaze darted back to the door as I saw movement beside the figure. Dark shapes slipping between the trees, slowly approaching. Panic surged through me. "Get away from there," I shouted, and I felt a thrill of bravery surge alongside the terror churning inside me. The figure whipped around, eyes wide with fear. "You have to let me in. Now!" But my instincts were screaming to keep it locked. I stepped back from the door, my breath growing shallow. I grabbed the box again, searching through it blindly, looking for something, any clue that could help me understand. The drawings. I flipped through them frantically, desperate for a sign, but all I could see were those lifeless stares and twisted figures. Then I stopped, my finger hovering over one I hadn't taken the time to fully study. There, at the edge, was a date written in bold, 2 days from now, marked with a red X. A shudder ran through me, and the implications snarled at the back of my mind. But before I could wrap my head around it, the knocking resumed, faster now. The figure outside started to pound, begging, "Please, don't leave me out here, The door rattled as something heavier thudded against it, a sound so aggressive I nearly stumbled back. I looked toward the window again in sheer panic, and that's when I saw it. That's when I saw my own reflection in the glass, teeth bared, eyes wild, watching me from the depths of the forest. I stepped back in horror. I had to make a choice, and fast. The pounding grew more violent, a frenzy that made the entire cabin shake. I gripped the box tightly, my knuckles turning white. I had to choose now. Trust the figure outside, or stay locked away and face whatever was lurking in the woods. "Please," the voice cracked, desperation leaking through. "I'm not one of them, you don't understand." A part of me wanted to open the door. If that figure was telling the truth, we could be in this together. But then I thought of the reflection in the glass, that snarling face. It could just be another trick, another way to lure me out of my hiding place. "Who's coming?" I shouted, hoping to gain some clarity. "Why should I trust you? They're not human. They don't think like you or me. You can't let them find you." The figure stepped closer, its face partially illuminated by a stray beam of moonlight. I still couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, but eyes filled with terror stared back at me. "Let me in, please. You'll be safe, if we stick together." Another loud thud hit the door, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. The atmosphere shifted, a thick blanket of dread pressing down on me. Just then I recalled the drawings in the box. I flipped it open again. Maybe there was something I had overlooked. I scanned through the chaotic scribbles, desperate for any clue that could tell me what was really happening. That's when I spotted it. A triangle shape drawn over a distorted figure, an X through it. Above it, words in jagged lettering. They change at dusk. Dusk. It was past dusk now. Fear coiled tightly in my gut. I hadn't made the connection before. The woods, the figures, those dark shapes moving among the trees. Were they the ones who change? "Let me in!" the figure yelled again, voice trembling. "You don't have much time. They can smell fear." I felt that fear creeping up my spine like icy fingers. I couldn't stand here any longer, frozen with uncertainty. "Who are you?" I demanded, feeling the weight of the moment bearing down. "I can't explain. Just trust me." It was hard to tell if the figure was genuinely scared, or if it was part of some grand deception. Then a sharp scream cut through the air, echoing off the trees. It sent sharp tendrils of panic racing through me. I peered out the window once more, heart pounding. In the darkness I spotted movement, a sequence of shapes merging together, each more grotesque than the last. They moved like shadows, low to the ground, hunched and terrifying. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, I swung around and threw open the door. "Get in now!" The figure dashed inside, slamming the door behind them just as something heavy collided against it with a jarring thud. My heart raced as I turned to face my unexpected visitor. "Who are you?" I spat, yet the question teetered in the air, heavy with suspicion. "I'm your only chance," they replied, backing away from the door, fear painting every word. Just then, the sound of claws scraped against the wood, sending tremors through the cabin. My breath caught. We were not alone. "Do you hear that?" I whispered, feeling the weight of whatever was outside press in. "Yes, and you need to listen to me." The figure's eyes darted around, wild and frantic. "I found something in the box," I said, trying to find focus. "What do you know about them?" Suddenly the door rattled violently. The air grew heavy with dread as shadows swirled just outside. But that wasn't the worst part. A deafening silence followed. Then everything went dark. I stumbled back, heart thudding against my ribs as darkness enveloped us. My eyes strained to adjust, but nothing came into focus. We were shrouded in an oppressive void, and I could barely hear the frantic breaths of the figure beside me. "Do you have a flashlight?" I whispered, keeping my voice low. "No," they whispered back, panic lacing their words. "But we have to stay quiet. They're attracted to sound." A bone-chilling growl rumbled outside, vibrating through the cabin walls. The figure flinched, a quick movement that I could barely make out in the dark. My skin prickled with the awareness that those things were out there, shambling closer. "We need to move," I said, trying to summon courage I didn't feel. "We can't just sit here." "Wait!" The figure grabbed my wrist, a firm grip that pulled me back. "Not yet. We need to listen." I stilled, pressing my ear against the wooden wall. The growling intensified, morphing into a ravenous snarl mixed with guttural whispers. I wanted to scream, but I forced myself to stay quiet, feeling the terror of the unknown clawing at my insides. Then, a sound sliced through the tension, a small creak like a branch breaking. My blood ran cold. Something was circling the cabin, hunting, probably close enough now to pick up even the faintest heartbeat. I focused on the figure slinking just outside. I couldn't help but imagine sharp, clawed hands scratching against my door. Each low growl seemed to taunt us, letting us know it was only a matter of time until they found a way in. "What did you see out there?" I finally asked, my voice trembling. "What did they look like?" The figure hesitated, then whispered, "They wear our faces." I saw one shift. It looked like a man, but then it just changed. "Changed?" I echoed. dread pooling in my stomach. What do you mean? They twist, morphing into something grotesque. It's like they don't have a form of their own. You'll know them by their eyes. They're soulless. A growl erupted from above us, shaking the roof with a heavy thud. My heart lurched. Were they climbing on the roof now? What do we do? Can we escape? I asked, my voice breaking. I have a plan, but we have to wait for the right moment. The cabin seemed to close in around us, and as my breath quickened, another scream echoed in the distance, familiar and haunting. The fear fueled my thoughts, and I was lost in a swirling memory of faces I had seen just before the trip. Suddenly, the door trembled again, and this time I felt the pressure of something pressing against it, testing its strength. I could almost taste the fear that gripped my throat. I think I started, but the figure shook their head. Not yet. Just breathe. Wait. But I couldn't breathe. The sense of impending doom wrapped around me like a vice. Then a sharp crash rang out, and light flooded through a crack in the door as it splintered. Before I could fully process it, I grabbed the figure. Now! We need to go! The door burst open, and chaos spilled into the cabin, shadows rushing in like water washing over a dam. But before I could blink, I saw them. Shades of people I once knew, contorting in the doorway, and the chilling realization washed over me. I recognized their faces, but something was terribly wrong. They weren't alone. As I stumbled back trying to process the twisted faces that loomed before me, a deep chill settled in my bones. I could see them more clearly now, illuminated by the jagged crack in the doorway. Friends from a time when laughter rang loud and carefree. Now they appeared distorted, their features warped into something unrecognizable. "What are you doing?" I heard myself whisper, the words slipping out before I could stop them. One of them stepped forward. It looked like Jake, but his eyes were hollow, dark voids that sent a shiver down my spine. "Help us," he rasped, his mouth forming the words, but the voice was wrong, gravelly and broken like they were trying to mimic him. "No!" I shouted, gripping the figure beside me tighter. "They're not real. They can't be." I felt so exposed, like I was a deer caught in the headlights, unable to run. The figure pulled me back toward the walls, the splintered door frame barely standing now. "We need to move now." Their voice was urgent, frantic. The fake Jake took another step, arms outstretched as if trying to reach for something they'd lost. The cabin was alive with their whispers and murmurs, enticing yet haunting. "We're here to help you," they echoed in sync, like a spell wrapping around me. But I couldn't let them pull me in. I tore my eyes away, trying to remember the escape plan. "Where do we go?" I asked, panic surging through me. "There's a back window," they replied, their grip firm as we went further into the cabin. "We have to be quick. If they see us, we're done." The growls echoed outside, a reminder of the lurking danger. As we navigated through the dimness, I tried to distinguish the real from the copies that filled my mind with dread. Each shadow skittering across the corners felt like a pair of eyes watching us, waiting for a moment to strike. We reached the back room, an old, dusty space filled with cobwebs. I glanced behind us. The figures had spread out into the cabin, searching for us like a pack of wolves. The chaos was growing, confusion playing tricks on me. I wasn't sure how many there were, only that they resembled everyone I used to know. "Help us!" one of them shrieked, its voice shrill and sending a wave of nausea through me. I pressed my hands to my ears, trying to block out the haunting echoes. I needed to focus. "Now!" the figure said, pointing to the window that had long been boarded up. "Can you push it free?" I rushed to the window, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the wood, prying at its edges. Just when I thought it might give, a deafening crash sounded behind us, and the front door was finally torn off its hinges. That's when I saw it. What emerged from the darkness sent my heart racing. A creature far worse than the others, its body twisting like it was made of smoke, and its face shifting into shapes I couldn't comprehend. It let out a guttural roar that shook the very ground beneath us. "Go, now!" my companion screamed, pushing me forward as the monstrous thing advanced, its soulless eyes locking onto mine. I didn't need to be told twice. I shoved the last of the boards aside, squeezed through the opening, and tumbled onto the soft earth outside. But as I turned back to help the figure, I realized only one of us was escaping. I hit the ground hard, the cool earth rough against my skin. My breath came in ragged gasps as I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding like a hammer. I spun around, frantically searching for my companion. The cabin loomed behind me, the door now a gaping mouth. Shadows danced inside, the distorted faces peering out, but they were not looking for me. They were looking for the one who stayed behind. "Please, no!" I yelled, my voice cracking as I strained to hear anything above the pounding of my heart. But the bravado was for nothing. There was only silence. I staggered backward, pulling myself away from the nightmare I had just escaped. A part of me wanted to run, to put as much distance as possible between myself and that cabin. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to know. Where had the figure gone? Had they escaped, too? I felt the weight of desperation settling over me. Then I remembered. The old dirt path that led to the nearby lake. It snaked behind the cabin, hidden and overgrown. I couldn't ignore it. With a deep breath, I turned and rushed toward the tree line, hoping to find a way to return to the water's edge. As I sprinted, flashes of movement caught my eye. Brief shapes darted between the trees, flickering like fireflies before disappearing into the shadows. My instincts told me to keep running, to ignore them, but my curiosity held me in place. "Who's there?" I called out, afraid yet compelled. No response came, just the whisper of the wind among the branches. I pressed on, nervous energy coursing through me, pushing past the underbrush. The lake was close. I could almost feel it. But then, I stumbled. My foot caught on a root, and I fell to the ground again, the forest floor welcoming me with a thud. I picked myself up and pushed forward, wiping dirt from my palms. But that's when I heard a sound, a soft rustling followed by a low growl. My heart plummeted. It was the thing from the cabin closing in. In a moment of panic, I glanced over my shoulder. The shadows grew heavier, stretching toward me, pulsing with a malevolence I didn't understand. I had to move, had to escape whatever was hunting me. A surge of adrenaline propelled me forward, but the growl grew louder, now a full-bodied sound that vibrated through the air. I glanced back again, and that was a mistake. I saw it trailing me, its form a grotesque blend of shadow and sharp edges. It surged through the trees, faster than I ever could run. There were no hiding places, no places to seek refuge. Come on, I urged myself, pushing harder, willing my body to go faster. I could see the outline of the lake up ahead, glimmering faintly in the dim light. My breath hitched. The water felt like it might be my only chance. Then I saw it, something floating just at the edge of the water. I strained to discern what it was. A figure, a lifeless shape bobbing gently in the waves. As I reached the shoreline, hesitation gripped me. The creature's growls were now a chorus of rage behind me, a taunt that seemed to dare me to look back, but I had to know what lay at the water's edge. And then, as if drawn by some unseen force, I stepped forward, only to realize the awful truth. I wasn't the only one haunted by this cabin. I froze at the edge of the lake, dread pooling in my stomach. The figure drifted closer to shore, water lapping at its sides like eager hands. My heart raced as I took a hesitant step closer, drawn by morbid curiosity. The surface shimmered in the evening light, but nothing could illuminate the horror that awaited me. I could see now it was a person, a woman. Her face was pale, unmoving, hair tangled and soaked. There were no visible wounds, but the water around her seemed darker, as if it were refusing to let her go. Panic jolted through me. "Is she—" I breathed, but I couldn't finish the thought. I staggered back. The growls behind me faltered, replaced by deathly silence. I almost turned to look when an instinct told me to stay put. Don't provoke it. But curiosity gnawed at me. Who was she? Why was she here? I had to know. I edged closer. I could almost reach out and touch her. My fingertips grazed the cool water, sending ripples outward. Sudden splash interrupted my thoughts. I whirled around to see a shadow looming behind me, cutting through the dark like a blade. It was the creature, its grotesque form now fully visible. The growling returned, low and primal, but it wasn't just sound. It was a warning. I stared at the woman, then back to the creature. The connection between them ignited a sickening realization. They shared something. She wasn't merely another victim. She was an offering. Panic surged again, igniting my instincts. I wasn't just here to observe. I was part of something bigger, something terrifying. With every ounce of strength, I turned from the lake and bolted back into the woods. Branches whipped against my arms as I ran, carving my skin, but I didn't care. The growls escalated into a furious crescendo behind me. I pushed through the underbrush, pain and fear propelling me further from the cursed shoreline. My mind raced. I had to find a way to escape, to outsmart the beast on my tail. I wanted to scream, but I forced myself to focus. There had to be something, anything up ahead. I could almost see the outline of the cabin way off in the distance again. A haunting silhouette. Then I heard voices. Confused shouts scattered through the trees. Relief tried to settle over me, but it felt wrong. What if they were a part of the nightmare, too? I slowed my pace, shadowed by uncertainty. "Over here," a voice called. It was familiar. My heart skipped. Was it my companion? I hesitated. Should I take the risk? Then, just as I was about to shout out, I heard it again. The growling, closer now, relentless. Someone was charging through the forest. The creature was hunting me. I turned back toward the voices, adrenaline coursing through my veins. If I would confront the unknown, I would do it with others by my side. I had to warn them. I had to know if they were friend or foe. But as I approached the clearing, a chilling doubt crept in. What if that thing wasn't the only horror this night held? I burst into the clearing, my breath ragged, only to find a small group of people huddled together, eyes wide with fear. They were strangers, but there was an urgency in their expressions that mirrored my own. "Help!" I gasped, pointing back toward the forest. "It's coming." Their reactions were mixed. Some turned with terror in their eyes, while others seemed intrigued, almost transfixed by the intensity of my fear. "What did you see?" one of them demanded, a tall woman with unruly hair, as her gaze flicked toward the darkness behind me. I struggled to explain, the words tumbling over each other like the frantic beats of my heart. "It's not just a creature. It has the faces of people, people I know." I shuddered, my eyes darting back toward the tree line, where the growls had silenced into a low, unsettling hum. "We need to hide," another voice pleaded, a young man with anxious eyes. "They'll find us if we stay out in the open." Without waiting for a response, they led me to a cluster of bushes where we crouched low, hearts racing. I could barely breathe, the tension coiling around us so tightly it felt suffocating. But that moment of reprieve shattered as the growl erupted again, now closer and more aggressive, as if the creature was hunting. "We can't let it see us," the tall woman whispered. "It can sense fear." A palpable terror coursed through me. I remember my own desperate heartbeat, but this time, what was it sensing? Surely there was fear in all of us, clawing against the last vestiges of hope. As we crouched in silence, the sounds of the forest morphed into something almost tangible. I could hear the low dragging of something heavy across the leaves, the shift of branches underfoot. Suddenly, a scream pierced the night, a sound so primal it sent a wave of nausea through my stomach. "Stay down!" the tall woman hissed, looking toward where I had come from. Then came a silhouette, shadow creeping through the trees like an oily smoke. My heart sank the moment I recognized the figure. It was Jake, or at least the twisted version of him. His eyes were hollow, his smile crooked, almost inviting. It stepped closer, and I could feel the air grow thick with darkness. "No!" I gasped, clutching the pendant I still had, the one I found earlier in the woods. It felt heavy, almost alive, pulsing against my palm. Perhaps it had some purpose in this insanity. The figure turned its head, seeming to catch wind of my thoughts. and the shadows shifted with unnerving clarity. "Help us," it rasped, a broken echo of Jake's original voice. "We're not like them." The others by my side hesitated. Do they trust him? Do I? I knew even less about my own understanding of the world. The secrets buried in the woods, the figures drawn in the box, and the warnings that stalked through the darkness. Then, from further into the woods, another figure emerged, twisted and gnarled, moving in a way that defied nature itself. It wasn't human, and we all know it. Panic surged through the group, confusion spiraling. I could see it in their eyes that they were questioning every choice that brought them here, me included. "Run!" the tall woman yelled suddenly, and the decision was made without argument. We bolted, adrenaline propelling us forward, fog and shadows swirling in our wake. Branches whipped against me as I darted, but I didn't look back. The others surged forward, driven by pure instinct, the instinct to breathe, to live. In my mind, I held on to the hope that we could find a way out, away from these woods, away from the encroaching madness. But then I remembered the lake and a chill crept over me again. "We need to head for the water," I shouted, hoping against hope that it might be a sanctuary. As I veered off, I heard their gasps. "What? Are you crazy?" But instinct drove me, a nagging feeling that somehow the lake was a crucial piece of this puzzle. With urgency, we pushed through the last of the underbrush and emerged at the edge of the darkening lake. Without thinking, I urged them closer. "We can figure this out here." But the air became charged, electric. The shadows flickered around us as the creature's growl echoed on the wind. I saw something in the water," I stammered, stepping to the shoreline. The water glimmered ominously beneath the pale moonlight. "I think we can do something." "There's nothing we can do," someone retorted, but even the protest sounded weak against the weight of what's haunting us. Then the figures appeared again, twisting closer along the shore, their faces now creeping forth like shadows of grief. Friends, neighbors, faces I could recognize. "Help us!" they all cried in unison, their voices weaving together, drowning out the growls. "No!" I shouted, resolve hardening in my chest. "I won't let you take anyone else." I brandished the pendant, adrenaline coursing through me. "Get back! You don't control me!" And suddenly, everything shifted. The whispers turned into an uproar of screams. The drops of water lapping against the shore morphed into waves that crashed wildly. The moon above pulsed with a visceral brightness, illuminating the chaos erupting around us. I felt the power radiate from the pendant, vibrating against my skin. Empowered, I called out again, demanding with every fiber of my being, "You have no hold over us." The shadows screeched back in fury, recoiling from the light as if it was poison. The figures stopped, their expressions shifting from grotesque anger back to the shapes of my past. I could see their true faces reflect back at me now, the horror tamed under the pulsing glow of hope. But just as quickly the shadows began to twist again. "You can't escape," a voice taunted, echoing through the air, chilling us to the bone. Even as the others began to back away in fear, I held my ground, feeling the warmth of the pendant thaw the coldness pressing around us. I raised it higher, letting the light encompass everything. "This is our story, not yours." With that I concentrated, channeling all my emotion into the pendant. It flared bright, illuminating the night and casting away the darkness. The figures hesitated, swaying before the radiance. But as the shadows receded, I caught a glimpse of something, of someone still lurking in the corner of the forest. A lingering presence, hidden but never truly gone, reducing to silence as if waiting, biding their time. I took a breath, the air shifting, sweeter now but tinged with lingering questions. I didn't know if we had truly freed ourselves, or if this was just the beginning of something deeper. I turned back to the others, still catching my breath as the realization of what I'd done began to settle. "We'll have to leave this place, won't we?" As we stood by the water's edge together, an uneasy silence wrapped around us. The lake glimmered, an anchor of uncertainty, and though we'd found some escape, I still wondered what other darkness lurked beyond the shadows. But for now, I had to believe we could go on. I wasn't sure where, but a strange resonance of hope entwined with the darkness left behind. I felt heavy yet light, burdened yet buoyed by the strangeness of what we faced, and all the questions that still remained unanswered. Would this haunting be the last? I cast one last look over my shoulder toward the woods as we began to turn away, and for the first time, I felt as if maybe, just maybe, our story was still being written.